So, as most of you probably know, since, well, I've made multiple different references to it over the course of the channel's history, the channel itself has had a Discord for some time now. Go check that out, that's kinda hype. Now, originally it was supposed to be purely for Return to Skylands stuff, but as time has gone on, it's pretty much become the official Discord for my channel. And even though I have a really offhand approach to everything with it, I have interacted with multiple people before, and after some time, I would get a DM from Harasite. Now, even though I wasn't able to respond, which I'm sorry about that, I was pretty busy at the time, I would take a look at the document that he sent me, and apparently it has tracked what Skylanders I have covered and what Skylanders I have not covered. Now, I would just like to say thank you to Harasite since this makes my life a lot easier, but as I was browsing through the Skylanders I have not covered, a specific element would stick out to me. The undead element. Now, the undead element has always been a personal favorite of mine when it comes to backstories due to how interesting and unique many of them are, so I was pretty excited to see that there were 3 left, one of them being a very popular Skylander that I'm surprised I haven't talked about yet, and 2 others that I've never really seen before. Well, I have seen both of them because they were Skylanders who were going to be in videos until I scrapped them, but that's pretty much the goal for today. We're going to take a look at the final undead Skylanders and wrap everything up with a nice little bow. So without any more stalling, let's get going.
Jump till you drop.
Now, when it comes to every single undead Skylander that I have ever tackled, I think that Chopscotch is the one that threw me for a loop the most. Not because she's a hard Skylander to talk about, she's actually surprisingly easy to, but because I wasn't able to cram her into a theme. I just did not know what Skylanders to pair her up with when I discovered her existence during the start of all of this. And even though I could have given her her own video, there wasn't really enough to talk about. But now that there's only 3 of them left, things have become extremely easy. But before we actually go into her backstory, she actually has a development history that we could talk about first. Even during her development, many acknowledge how odd of a character she was. She originally was a small skeleton girl with a giant axe, and even though I wasn't able to find any pictures or images, she still kept the main theme of her design in her final design. Her name did change, however, as she originally went by the name of Grim Cleaver, and to even out the cuteness of her design, the designers fiddled around with the size of her axe and gave her those cool looking skull etchings. And after all of that was sorted out, nothing else really needed to be altered and she was pretty much ready to go. So with the explanations over, let's get into her backstory and see what the writers cooked up for us. Before Chopscotch joined the Skylanders, the only thing that ever really mattered to her was mastering her giant axe and rocking out to Wolfgang's music. Even though the other ghouls in the underworld laughed at her for making up rhymes to Wolfgang's song, and she was shorter than those around her, her size never really bothered Chopscotch that much. But the thing that would bother her is when her idol joined up with the Doom Raiders. She saw Wolfgang as her personal hero, and she was absolutely devastated by this, but instead of letting his turn to evil destroy her, she decided to put her axe skills to use. When Wolfgang and his goons attempted to curse an entire town during an evil concert, she would fight back against him, and her defiance would surprise nearly everyone, and soon all of the villagers were speaking rhymes in her honor. Soon after, Chopscotch would meet Master Eon, and he was so impressed by her fighting skills that he recruited her as a sensei for the Smasher class, where she teaches new Skylanders how to fight and how to rhyme as well. I think the most interesting part of this backstory is how it coincides with Wolfgang's, and the more that I think about it, the more I wonder what these two think about each other since, well, they're both senseis. Another thing, what is up with the Doom Raiders and their timeline? Because holy hell, now that I'm actually seeing what I assume to be most of it, they have to have one of the most confusing backstories in all of Skylands as a collective. This is probably going to be its own video sometime in the future because good god, that is a mess and a half. But with all of that said and done, let's get going to the next Skylander.
The Scales of Justice.
Once again, we have another sensei to talk about today, this time a sensei of the sorcerer class, and what's interesting about Pit Boss is that he's one of the 3 snake or viper inspired Skylanders, or at least that's what I think. It's actually kind of surprising to me that there aren't any more because you could get so much out of characters with a snake-like design. I mean, we have seen it before in concept art for other Skylanders, so I'm genuinely surprised that we only got 3, at least to my knowledge. Pit Boss is also one of the 2 legendaries from Skylanders Imaginators, and what's interesting about that is instead of having the blue and gold color scheme that most legendaries have, he, along with Tri-Tip, have a red and gold color scheme. Now, I have no clue why the colors of the legendaries changed, but if I had to guess, maybe they wanted to make the Sensei legendaries more special than the others for some reason. But with all of that out the way, let's get into his backstory. Before he became a Skylander, Pit Boss was instead a member of a powerful order of snake philosophers known as the Order of the Snakes, who operated and lived high up in the Great Twisty Mountains. Travelers would come from all over Skylands and make the treacherous climb just to seek out the wisdom of the snakes, and once they came face to face with them, they were allowed to ask the snakes one question. But as time went on, Pit Boss would become alarmed by what he was being asked. He was asked by several different people how to deal with the growing threat of chaos, and with the amount of people bringing this to his attention, he knew that it was time for action. Pit Boss would leave the Order of the Snake so he could search for chaos, and it was clear to him that chaos was worse than he could possibly imagine. So, knowing that he couldn't take chaos on his own, he would join the Skylanders, and due to his wisdom and mystical powers, Master Eon made him a part of the Sensei program as a Sorcerer Master. Now, the most interesting aspect of this story to me is that this is another case where Chaos unintentionally created a Skylander. Like, seriously, how many times is he going to keep doing this? This also makes me wonder why Pit Viper is an undead Skylander, since he would be way more at home as a magic Skylander in my eyes, but with all that said and done, I think it's about time that we get into the final Skylander of today, and I'm pretty sure that a lot of you are going to be excited for this one.
Slice and dice.
Now, when it comes to the final Skylander of today, and the final undead backstory if I'm correct, I think that Chop Chop is pretty poetic, since Chop Chop has been one of the faces of the undead element since he was introduced, in that he was the first undead Skylander alongside Cinder, Ghost Roaster, and Hex. Now, I know many of you are probably wondering, what are my thoughts on him? And all I really have to say is that I think he's pretty neat. So with all of that out the way, I think it's about time that we get into his development history. Now, according to his development history, Chop Chop was more of a PvP-centric Skylander than a PvE-centric Skylander, as shown by his shield that allows him to close in on long-range units in both PvP and PvE. He also has a quote-unquote generic connection to Star Control's 2 Yacht Terminator, and he used to be called Archean Knight before Toys for Bob settled with Chop Chop. But with all of that said and done, let's hop into his backstory. Long ago, millennium upon millennium before the Skylanders existed as we know them, Chop Chop was an elite warrior created by the ancient Archean Empire. Like many of the Archeans, Chop Chop was created specifically from a combination of elements, in his case specifically, undead, magic, and tech. He was a relentless, highly skilled warrior who had a sword and shield constructed from an indestructible metal. And even though much of his history before the fall of the Archean Empire is shrouded in mystery, what we do know about him is that he was one of the many machines left to toil away after the Archeans fell. But interestingly enough, Chop Chop would get fed up, as there was nothing more tedious than being an undead machine, since it would never end. Deciding to figure out where his makers went, he would stomp up to the surface and try to find someone to seek new orders from. Chop Chop would wander across the face of Skylands without direction before he eventually ran into Master Eon, who was also the last of his kind, and Eon would give him a new purpose, protecting the innocence of Skylands as a Skylander. Now, that end bit there reinforces my idea that the Archeans and Portal Masters of old are one and the same, or at least connected, like I suggested in the Lore of Arcus video. And the reason why I say that is because he went up to the surface to seek out new orders, and he was given new orders by Eon. Now, the reason I say that is because it's safe to assume that he went out to find new orders from someone within the Archean Empire, and he seems to be unaware of what happened to the Archeans fully, or at least that's what is implied. But once again, it's purely speculation. Another thing I managed to catch. It says in his first backstory, since he's one of those special Skylanders where he has multiple different backstories, that he's one of many Archeans who were made with a hybridization of elements. And that makes me wonder what other machines were designed in a similar way but with different elements. But with that said and done, I'd like to thank you all for watching. Like always, hit the subscribe button if you enjoy content like this, share this around so I can grow the channel, leave some comments down below to make the algorithm happy, check out Return to Skylands along with the Discord and the music link down in the description below, and I will see you all in the next one.